Welcome in, my friends. 5 minutes with Sean, maybe 10. The end of October is already upon us. Unbelievable. September, October does not sound like it's been fun. And so that kind of is what motivates podcasts. It's what the conversations are, is where I take a lot of my lead from. And so right now, one of the topics we're hearing a lot and covering a lot is managers. Specifically how people are managed, what people are responding to, what they are not. And so it gets me thinking about what I've encountered in my life as managers and how do you manage people? It's something that I think I've been learning as I've gotten into having my own company. I think I'm a decent leader of humans in a way that I can rally the troops type shit. I think I could do that. Day to day, I think I get a little bit tougher to manage people because I start to apply really unrealistic expectations to situations, which as I've gotten older is something that I've definitely chilled out on, scaled back on a bit. Nothing crazy, but I have definitely done it. And so with that, it's the last couple of managers that I had before I started this. One, I had a manager, great manager. This dude, Chris Conklin. Chris is great. Working for ADP. He was smart enough to let people do their jobs. That was his gig. That's how he did it. He's quiet. Didn't get too high. Didn't get too low. If he had to be stern with you, he was stern with you, but in a way that was always still pretty direct and without being an asshole, which I appreciate. Because before that in retail automotive, I dealt with a fair share of asshole managers, right? I grew up in the Chicago car business, late 90s. And that was, eat or be eaten shit. And so but when you think about it, right? Think about where do people learn behavior? It's typically from the person above them, right? Like your parents teach the kids, so on and so forth. The oldest teaches the youngest, blah, blah, blah. So if you think about where, like today, people are like, oh, my managers are this. And it's like, well, do you promote from within? Yeah. Okay. They were salespeople before that. And the managers who sat in this desk did the same thing to salespeople. So salespeople learned that if they survived it, not all are able to change that into like be the manager they want to be, because typically that sort of managerial culture is wider than that. And so it can be just sort of a get in line, stay in line. So when we think about manager problems today, they kind of are the symptom of decisions we had made years previous in how we ran our dealerships, how we talked to our employee, whatever it is. All of those now that people are looking really hard at culture and seeing where they can get the next 1%. That's all I ever talk about. The next 1%, the next 5%. This game's been going on a long time. You don't typically walk into a situation where you're going to be able to take it, up 100% from where it was. That's not normally what goes on. The reality of situation is growth comes in incremental growth. And that's what you got to aim for. And that's what you got to go look for. And so when you look at how people are managed, you can see it. Like my buddy Josh, he always talks about 30,000 foot management, being able to give ideas, move people forward. And then the next layer of management pushes and really and takes that messaging. We did we're in the middle of a major overhaul with one of our largest clients and our oldest client. And what we're doing, it's crazy. We're like going back 12 years in time doing what we did for him all back then. And because it's a process we sort of evolved out of. We had given them the rope, they had taken the rope and run with it. And then we sort of were asked to evolve our business into helping them in the marketing aspect and getting away from the BDC aspect. Well, now we're coming back, and it's so cool. It's fucking magical, truly, to be able to do that with people and to have that relationship. It's what I'm in this business for, is the relationship business, which is, I guess, what can make me a decent manager, I suppose, to that extent, is that I have the ability to do that, I guess. So to me, it's something that, I didn't realize I had all my stuff out there. Sorry about that, guys. It's something that I look at from a manager perspective, and I think to myself, today's people really, what I hear from managers are no one wants to work, no one wants to do anything. But what you hear from salespeople as employees is, I don't want to be yelled at. I don't want to come to work for 12 hours and be treated that way. Okay. Well, then somewhere between there and here is where we go. When we're dealing with this overhaul that we're doing, we've had some managers along the way have concerns and questions about getting people to do something they hadn't done. And in this case, it was utilize the CRM more. And it just wasn't on anyone's real purview. People just sort of operated in silos and did their work and did that. And we started to open up conversation, open up dialogue around the concept of, well, where did that start from? How did we get there? And so we went all the way up the chain and we're like, okay, cool. These are the dudes that need to make sure they can get it. Once we have them get it, they can push it down and everyone can work together. And I mean, we're like 60 days in, and you can already see an evolution of usage. You can already see an evolution of managerial difference. It's possible to change opinion. It's not likely, but it is possible to do it. And so when managers are being promoted from being salespeople, what training are they? What is your manager training? Let's just ask ourselves that. What is your manager training? Because as I've ever seen manager training, when I was promoted to F&I, it was, here's how F&I works. These are the systems, the basics of everything. Cool, got it. When I was promoted to the desk, it was, you already know how to use desking because you've been in finance, so get to desking. And we're good. Sell, whatever, cars, and let's go. Okay, well, there wasn't. Okay, I learned management training when I was young at the Men's Warehouse, which I've mentioned many times in the show. Used to have one of the most killer training programs in the history of automotive, in the history of retail anything, is what I was going to say. Literally retail anything. George, he cracked the code on culture, on training structure. It was a thing, man. It was a thing that everyone bought. It was crazy. Everyone bought into highest level, lowest level. It was wild. Anyways, at its height. So it is possible to do it. It is possible to get buy-in. But as I always say, buy-in has to come from the very tippy top. And back to George, that shit always started there and was always about him and what he expected people below him to do. And everyone took that seriously because he was in it for that. He was in it for the customer. He was in it for the experience. And that is what motivated all of us to be in it for the experience and put on our own shows individually as we did. So, but when I got promoted to be a manager in that company, I was already given managerial training, already told what was next. So when I say in automotive, I wasn't given any automotive specific. I think managing people is managing people. I think it's something you can apply across many different platforms. So that's why I wasn't as scared about it. And that's why, the idea of being a GM and being, in the ownership position in automotive retail was something that I always aspired to do. So it was something I wanted to do. And so when I was in sort of a shadow GM position before actually getting into that role, it was cool. It was fun to be able to learn from good people. But I'll say, and I'll say in closing to this, that when it comes to culture, I left my last retail job because of culture. And what's crazy is here I sit. Geez, I left 15 years ago at this point. Yeah, 15 years ago. 15 years later, that group's culture is 180 degrees different. They retain people like nobody's business, and they have the place to work. Don't tell me it's not possible. If you miss being social, go check out anything you see online about Laura Fleischer and the Roman Automotive Group. Tell me it's not possible. It can happen. But people have to, the one thing on all the things you cannot train people is to give a shit. They give a shit. They're good people and they'll follow along. All right. Go out, have yourselves a wonderful rest of the week. Next week on the show, we're going to talk about vendor blaming. We'll see you then.